Brandon Biggs predicted a turbulent year for the US economy, especially when it comes to the stock market, the dollar, and the energy sector. He foresaw the US dollar losing value, oil and gas prices rising, and even assets like crypto gaining ground. These changes were supposed to happen in the winter, when the berries turn red, and during Trump's second term in the White House. By now, we should have already seen the economy crashing down, with people stunned at how perfectly everything aligned with the prophecy. But it hasn't happened yet. Sure, things are starting to look a little shaky, but nothing on the scale of the catastrophe predicted. So what happened? Did the course of events change, or is this just the beginning? As it turns out, it might actually be starting to play out exactly as predicted, but in a way that's more dramatic and unexpected than anyone could have imagined. A new direction, immigration policy, and inflation. One of the biggest shifts we're seeing right now is Trump's hardline immigration policy. He's pushing to deport illegal immigrants and has even disabled birthright citizenship. At first glance, this might seem like a righteous move, something many Americans could get behind. But when we take a deeper look, the consequences on the economy become more complex. Many of the people affected by these deportations hold jobs that Americans are generally unwilling to fill. Hard labor jobs in fields like truck driving, warehousing, and agriculture. These positions are often underpaid, and the workers take these jobs because they don't have a lot of options. When these foreign workers are kicked out of the workforce, businesses have to scramble to find replacements, and that means hiring new employees who, because they're legally required to be paid more, will demand higher wages. The result? Businesses raise the prices of their products to cover the higher labor costs. What started out as a just policy of removing illegal immigrants ends up triggering a whole new wave of inflation, something we hadn't necessarily seen coming. We've talked before in our previous videos about inflation and how a lack of labor can drive it. When there aren't enough workers, companies have to offer higher wages to attract people. But these higher wages have to come from somewhere, so businesses increase the price of their products. This is happening in industries that affect us all, like food production, trucking, and warehousing. In the end, it's a new form of inflation, and it's all because of Trump's immigration policies. A political tension, the Colombia incident. The effects of Trump's immigration policies aren't just being felt within the US, they're causing ripples globally. A recent diplomatic incident with Colombia sheds light on how far-reaching this could be. Historically, the US and Colombia have had a strong relationship, especially when it comes to trade. Colombia has been one of the US's allies in the region, particularly in combating drug cartels and working together on trade agreements. Under Biden, the deportations of Colombian nationals had already been happening, but they were done with respect. Those deported were treated fairly, and the process was relatively peaceful. However, when Trump took office again, things changed. Colombian deportees were sent back to their country via military planes, handcuffed and treated in a manner that was seen as disrespectful. The Colombian president was understandably upset, and this caused a diplomatic rift between the two nations. In response, Trump imposed a 25% tariff on Colombian products. This was his way of asserting control, but it didn't sit well with Colombia, especially given their long-standing relationship. This sparked a bigger question about how Trump's policies, which were initially aimed at curbing immigration, might end up causing greater global tensions. As we've seen, Trump has shown little hesitation to raise tariffs with countries, even those that have been US allies for years. This is just one example of how Trump's immigration policy is causing tensions not only within the US, but with countries around the world. And as we know, when you start pushing allies away, you create room for new, unexpected alliances to form elsewhere. The bigger picture: how global forces could impact inflation. Speaking of global tensions, Brandon Biggs also mentioned something about certain countries, like China and Russia, working together to destabilize the US banking and financial systems. Although we haven't seen that happen yet, some recent events are making it seem like it could be coming sooner than expected. One major trigger came with the release of China's AI tool, DeepSeek. On the day DeepSeek was released, the tech world felt the shockwaves, and the Nasdaq Composite suffered a steep drop of over 3%. This initial dip was largely attributed to the sudden and powerful introduction of DeepSeek, a Chinese AI tool that many analysts began referring to as a virtual nuke bomb aimed directly at the US tech sector. Investors were rattled, as the implications of this new AI development threatened to disrupt the balance of power in global technology. But the story didn't end there. The very next day, the market's response grew even more dramatic. A deeper correction set in, and the Nasdaq Composite plunged another 4.5%, bringing the two-day drop to more than 7%. This signaled a major market correction, and the effects were felt most acutely in the stock prices of big tech companies. Here's a breakdown of how some of the industry's giants were hit. Nvidia, already reeling from the initial drop, saw its stock plummet by 17.3%. The company, a leader in AI hardware, faced the dual threat of China advancing its own AI capabilities and the fear that its chips might no longer dominate global markets. The introduction of DeepSeek, potentially providing China with its own advanced chip technology, caused alarm among investors who quickly pulled back. Amazon also took a massive hit, with its stock sinking by 14.2%. Investors were spooked by the potential ripple effects of the geopolitical tensions between the US and China, as well as the rise of China's own technological capabilities. Amazon's global supply chain, reliant on tech and international trade, was seen as vulnerable to disruptions caused by this new AI tool. Apple's stock didn't fare much better, dropping by 11.8%. Apple, which has increasingly invested in AI for its devices, faced the prospect of competition from DeepSeek, particularly in the realm of consumer tech and AI-driven services. The fear that China's rise in AI could erode Apple's competitive edge, especially in Asia, prompted a wave of sell-offs. Microsoft was another major player affected, losing 12.6% of its value. As a leader in cloud computing and AI, Microsoft's business model was heavily reliant on the technological status quo, which was suddenly being upended. The growth of China's AI sector raised concerns that Microsoft could lose market share, especially in regions where China's influence is growing. Tesla, which has invested heavily in AI for autonomous driving and other technologies, saw its stock drop by 9.4%. While Tesla's core business is in electric vehicles, its reliance on AI to enhance driving technology made the company particularly susceptible to competition from China. The market feared that Tesla could be outpaced by local Chinese competitors leveraging advanced AI like DeepSeek. The two-day drop in the Nasdaq was a sharp wake-up call to the broader market. The virtual warfare that's unfolding in the digital realm has significant consequences for the real world. The initial shock of DeepSeek's release led to a 3% fall in the Nasdaq, but it was the subsequent day's 4.5% plunge that brought home the gravity of the situation. These drops and the severe declines in stock prices for major tech companies serve as a clear example of how quickly the global tech landscape can shift. and how vulnerable even the most established companies can be when faced with disruptive forces. The combination of geopolitical tension and technological advancements, as exemplified by DeepSeek, has the potential to reshape the future of the tech industry. For now, the stock market is reflecting the uncertainty and fear surrounding this new era of digital competition. The consequences of this new kind of virtual warfare are just beginning to unfold, and investors, along with tech companies, are bracing for what comes next. What's even more interesting is that despite his previous statements about raising tariffs on China and Russia, Trump seems to have taken a liking to their leaders. During his first term, he was often seen cozying up to some of the world's more controversial leaders, even as he burned bridges with traditional allies. It's not hard to see how this kind of diplomacy could lead to even more uncertainty in global markets. And while Trump has stated that he could end the Russian war before the election, it remains to be seen how that will unfold. In the meantime, his unorthodox policies, often breaking bonds with allies while forging relationships with adversaries, seem to be charting a course that could continue to shake up the global order. Whether it's the ongoing trade tensions with Colombia, his stance on immigration, or the growing influence of global powers like China and Russia, we're witnessing a time of unprecedented change. And as history has shown us, when things change, they change fast. As we look back on the events of the past year and their impact on the US economy, it's clear that we're in the midst of a turbulent time, and the prophecy that Brandon Biggs predicted for 2025 may still be unfolding, just not in the way anyone expected. The shifts in the stock market, the rise in inflation, and the unpredictable geopolitical developments all seem to be pointing towards something much bigger than we imagined. Trump's immigration policies, while aimed at securing the border and changing the demographic makeup of the workforce, have created ripple effects that are starting to fuel a new wave of inflation, especially in sectors that are essential to daily life. Meanwhile, his unpredictable diplomacy, particularly his increasing ties to nations like Russia and China, has further complicated matters on the global stage, leading to unexpected market fluctuations. Add to that the technological race, with China's AI tool DeepSeek sending shockwaves through the Nasdaq, and it's easy to see how the course of the economy is being shaped by forces beyond our control. The drop in the stock market, particularly in tech giants like Nvidia, Amazon, and Apple, highlights just how vulnerable industries are when the balance of power shifts so dramatically. So, has the prophecy come true yet? Maybe not in the way we thought, but it's clear that we're living in a time of deep uncertainty. The trends are unfolding before our eyes, and whether they align with Biggs's vision or not, they're certainly shaping the future in ways that are both dramatic and unforeseen. The world is changing, and change is happening faster than ever. From the White House to the stock market, and from the borders of the US to the global tech race, we are witnessing a shift in power, influence, and the very fabric of our economy. How it all plays out remains to be seen, but one thing's for sure: the road ahead won't be an easy one. As the prophecy continues to unfold, we'll be keeping a close eye on the unfolding drama and its effects on the world around us.